There is a lot to discuss here at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. But the clear focus for Keir Starmer is simple: working out how to win the next election. I'm Jacob Jarvis, here from Oh God What Now, looking to speak to people about the key themes and the main topics for discussion here, and whether Labour has what it takes to move from being a party in opposition to being a party in power.
The past 13 years have been a circus, and the British public has paid the price for Tory chaos. This conference was a good opportunity for the Labour Party to be more clear on how they would be different. Labour MP Barry Gardiner says that's key.
Our purpose at this conference is to focus on the public. It's to focus on people out there and the things that matter to them, and to show that we've got the answers.
He also drew attention to housing, in particular the need to end the current leasehold system.
We've got to get rid of this feudal system of leasehold. I actually campaigned back in 1999 for the 2002 Act on Common Hold and Leasehold Reform, right? And in my second reading speech I said, look, okay, we're making a bit of progress, but we're not there, and we're going to have to come back to this. I said we'll need to come back to it in 6 or 7 years' time. Here we are, 20 years later.
There's a lot more Labour might need to change if it gets into power. Environmental policy is one, policing another. For Naomi Smith, CEO of Best for Britain and a close friend of ours, getting closer to the EU should be a huge focus.
So our big push this year is around Brexit and getting that much closer relationship with Europe. So David Lammy's speech this morning talked a lot about that, the need to forget this little islander mentality, that we actually do need to work with, not against Europe, and have a far better relationship than the one that Johnson negotiated for us.
The work of turning things around might be easier said than done, and not just on Brexit. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves set out her economic plan at the conference. Caris Roberts, Executive Director for the IPPR, says there were parts that were really positive.
There was one policy in there that I think could be quite transformative, which is to set the national living wage, which is effectively the minimum wage, to align with what it actually costs to live, so making it a real living wage.
There's been much talk of the last time Labour came into office, but Steve Richards says this Labour Party faces different challenges compared to the last time it took power.
Britain is in a complete mess. It's out of Europe. Labour had the advantage of being in Europe when they came in 97. The economy's not growing. It was growing quite a lot in 97. And public services are dire. And therefore, to just say, oh, we're going to, reduce a classroom size here and there, it's not enough. Now, it's always difficult because the tax and spend debate in Britain always makes public spending seem like a threat when Labour propose it, rather than a source of hope. So they have to find ways of indicating things are going to improve without spending money.
While this conference was positive, it perhaps wasn't the most exciting. But after the madness of the current government, something more dull might be what we need to get back on track, says political commentator Marina Purkis.
I'm quite happy with Bland. I think the country needs Bland. It's like almost the Gordon Brown type person in charge. I don't want to have to commentate constantly on the inner bitching and squabbles and power struggles that go on within a party, within the factions of a party. Actually, I'd really like to look at policy and what a party is promising, and then hold them to account on whether they are delivering on that.
Transparency is also important if Labour are to get into power.
In order for Labour to kind of move forward in a really transparent way, I think they have to be very clear about their relationship with businesses. And of course, they have been very clear that that's something they're interested in. But what they have to be clear about is who they're meeting with, what those meetings are about, when they're happening, and how that may lead to policy decisions.
To all those who now write our country off, Britain must, Britain can, Britain will get its future back. Thank you, conference.
After all we've seen at conference, one key question remains.
Why would I vote for Labour?
I think this is an easy argument because people have seen themselves the levels of incompetence that this government have demonstrated, particularly in recent years. And then when you add that in to the toxic nature of Boris and the scandals that there were, people are actively looking for a fresh start in politics, and Labour is that fresh start.
I wouldn't tell you, I'd ask you. I'd ask you, what's important to you? Is it your children? Do you have children? Is it your career? What are the things that you want out of life? And then when you tell me that, I would explain how I believe Labour's policies will enable you to better achieve the goals that you have.
Because we need to spell out to people not just what we're not, but who we are and what we're planning to do. And I think I'm hopeful that a lot of the things that are getting discussed both in the fringes and on conference floor is going to help us really sell that overarching vision to people rather than just talking about individual bits and pieces of policy and, you know, individual initiatives and so on.
Then we have to show how we would do something better. I think that is the foundation. I know there's still a lot more to come about what that might look like, and I would be asking every voter, whether they voted Labour, whether they voted Conservative, whether they voted for a third party, to be part of that conversation about how we can do that. Because I don't actually think it comes from the top anymore. It comes from the networks and the communities that we build together saying, these are the foundations, how do you want to make it work in your area? But if we did that, I think this country would have a much more exciting future, and that's what we could vote for at the next election.
Everyone we've spoken to here in Liverpool has given us a sense of hope, confidence and optimism from the Labour Party, which at points in recent years has been lacking. However, there still is a sense of trepidation. We don't know exactly what Rishi Sunak and the Tories will do in the coming months up to a general election, but we do know they are desperate. But for Keir Starmer and his team, the wheels are in motion. And who knows, perhaps things can only get better. I'm Jacob Jarvis, here for Oh God What Now at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool.